If you've been told when you were growing up, you're never satisfied, are you? You're always trying to change things. Why don't you just sit down? Do you know what? That's what you need to be like to be an entrepreneur.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another show. My name is Neil Zaval, your host for this year. Welcome to Europreneur, the podcast of EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, where I get the chance, I actually feel very grateful and lucky, to interview some of the most interesting entrepreneurs around Europe. And today I have a very special guest. Jake, you know why you're special? Because I've been waiting for this for about 2 or 3 months.
We've nearly done it a few times, haven't we? Yeah, we've nearly done it. We've seen each other in person and didn't quite manage it. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you enjoy the event?
The One Level Up in Amsterdam. Yeah. No, that was really good. That was really good. I must admit, I had a bit of a chest infection, so I wasn't the biggest party animal, but it was fantastic to go on the boats and see the scenery and to meet so many fantastic people. The fact that there were so many accelerators there, I think it gave it a really good buzz as well. So that was good to see them getting on well.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, NEO, we meet quite often and we have different events in different countries, regions, continents. And we just met, 170 of us met in Amsterdam for 3 days learning. And we have an accelerator, which is always fun. So startups and companies that don't exactly qualify for EO yet come and we take them to the next level. You can always check that out also on the website, eoeurope.com. But for those of you who don't know you yet, are you ready to give us a short introduction, a short elevator pitch?
I hate the elevator pitch bit, but I will give it a go, and maybe you can tutor me afterwards because I know you're good with this marketing.
Let's try.
Yeah. Jane Hales from Sapio Research. I'm one of the founder members of a full research agency. We're based in London, but work with clients all over the world. We are here to support more confident decision-making and brands getting better headlines through data, through the bits that go on behind. So we tend to support them in their audience, brand, and content research. And we're most well known for supporting with that content research, hence working with PR and marketing agencies. But they often want to go back to understand the audience or understand their perception within the marketplace. So I ask questions for a living, which is great.
That's a great elevator pitch. I ask questions for a living. Now let me explain what I do. It's interesting. And where are you located?
We're in London. So we've just moved into a shiny new office near Borough Market, actually, in London Bridge. So there's a good vibe in the team at the moment. Lots of energy for all of these new things that are about to happen. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. I spent a month there last year.
Oh, in whole of London? In
Vauxhall, actually. I stayed in Vauxhall.
Nice. That's near the MI5 building, I think, isn't it? Did you see lots of spies?
Yes. Yeah, I went for a few interviews. No, and I ran on the Thames, which was interesting, and up to the London Bridge and back. That was about I think 5K each way or something like that, which was great. How did you get into this business?
I think, as with most market researchers, it's by accident. It wasn't something that I went to school and university and thought, do you know what I will do? I will do market research. I did earth sciences and I wanted to save the world, join the National Rivers Authority and do all those great environmental things. Couldn't find a job for about 6 months, so I joined the Meteorological Office and learnt to tell the weather and bits and pieces. And I was put in a department to do computer programming. The maps that you see on the TV where they're going, oh, and the rain is coming and the cold front and things like that. And it was technical, it was brilliant, but it wasn't really me as such. And then they were at the time when they were changing to become a commercial organisation. So instead of a government body, a more commercial organisation getting their own funds, and a marketing department was set up. And I managed to get a job to cover temporarily market research because they were in that stage where they wanted to understand who would be their customers, what did they want, what price would they pay for weather forecast, that kind of thing. And that was where I got the bug for it and thought, this is much more me than sitting and programming a computer. It's asking the questions. So when the lady returned, she got her job back, and then I left the Met Office and started working with a market research agency in Kent, thinking I'd be there for 2 years. Moved around London, and then I was there on and off for about 10 or 12 years, and I have just stayed in the agency world largely for the last 30-odd years. And My business, we started it 7 years ago.
7 years ago?
7 years ago. So I'm quite late to this business of being an entrepreneur, I suppose, owning businesses. So it's
What
really
is
got
late?
interesting. Like
How do you
22
define
years as
late?
an 22 years as an employee. I don't know many other members of EO that seem to have stayed there that long.
Question, can I be,
Yeah,
I don't know,
yeah.
21, 22 after finished straight out of university and start a marketing research company?
I couldn't have done that. Yeah, I wouldn't have known what I was doing. Yeah.
So I think there are certain sectors, right, or fields where you need some sort of an expertise. You see it a lot with consultants, right, or the big four and all that. People do it for a few years, and afterwards they leave. They start their own businesses or go to bigger, different companies or startups or stuff. Are you a good or a bad employee after 22 years?
Employee or employer?
Employee. Were you a good or a bad employee?
I think I was a good employee. I did what I was asked, and I think that possibly was detriment in the end because you just keep your head down and don't question things. So yeah, I was a good employee. Worked hard.
So what makes you, after 22 years, say, you know what, I can do it by myself?
Do you know what? There almost wasn't a choice, and it was one of those. To Sapio Research, we are as a result of a huge culture clash, in effect. I was part of a much bigger organisation. We were the only research agency at the time. It was a marketing services company. And it was just the time when content marketing, content research, big data was starting to happen. So they were quite acquisitive and they were buying various agencies. So we were the first research and we naively sat out in Kent and went, oh, this is all fine. We're making good profit. Nobody's bothering us. And then they bought their second agency who were younger, more ambitious, a bit more switched on to the big world of finance and so forth. And then we were merged together. And my MD they paid him off and I was told to take the team into London, get it all moving, get everybody settled down, get the two businesses working together. And within 9 months, I think there was 3 or 4 of us left, of which I was one, and one of my current business partners was another. And it got to the stage where, well, do I go for another job? Or do we sort of form a little band of people that have enjoyed working together that actually realise that they're better than they thought they were because of the contrast of what they've seen and start again? We had nothing to lose. It was a low cost of entry, laptop and questions and skills, and we gave it a go. And I'm pleased to say 7 years later, we've gone strength to strength. So yeah, that's great.
How did it feel that day, coffee shop, a house where you and your business partners say, you know what, we can do it. Let's do it.
It took a couple of times. We're not decisive people.
You didn't have enough data.
Yeah, do you know what? There is almost an element like that. And at the time, there was 4 of us. One person had been made redundant, so the decision was almost easy. He'd set up another job, but why not work with people that can help deliver things? I was still employed. One of my other business partners had left. She'd started a new job because she'd hated it so much. So there was just 2 of us left in the old business. So for 2 of them, the decision was quite easy because they were already moved on. For the others, it was one of those, we, as a team, bring different things to the party. And it was, if it doesn't work, we can always go back and find another job. But yeah, it took a couple of weeks. But once we decided, then it's right, come on, let's go.
Did you have the benefit when you started of being someone that's known in the industry, or were you always in the back? How do you find your first clients now that you're out there?
I've been in the industry for many years, but I wasn't particularly big with the profile or what have you. At the time, one of the business partners, he was the MD, so he had more of a profile, although wasn't necessarily, doing lots of thought leadership pieces, but he had the profile. We did good work with clients, and there have been some clients that have moved from one company that have been employed into another, to the other, to the other, and they've often taken us with us. So it's the people rather than the brand name that they've tended to go with. So we were lucky that one of the contracts that we were on, it was a halfway house. They were mini research department inside their organisation. So that was the foundation of the first contract. And then I had to be careful with non-compete. A couple of us had to be careful with non-compete. But once it was known that we were setting something up, within a couple of months, definitely within the first year, things started doors were being knocked and such. But because one person had left before us, that made it easier for the non-compete for him to have those conversations rather than me.
I think I love the fact that you're saying it's about the people that move from place to place and not necessarily the brands that you go to. And that has a lot to do with relationships, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you know what? That is possibly a piece of advice I would have told my younger self much, much sooner in terms of be open to opportunities, keep your eye open. You don't know who you're going to bump into and where they're going to be. And relationships are so key to getting you in places, developing you and so forth. Don't be quiet, sitting in a corner. Put your hand up. Give it a go. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to ask you a question about that, actually, now that you're saying, because business-wise, I agree, and I'm very outspoken. I talk a lot. I love meeting people. For me, college was all about meeting the people. I would barely go into the classes or they would kick me out anyway. And I've always been like that. But here's what I want to ask you. Now, when we are working on the podcast and we're trying to find people, guests, at the beginning it was very hard. Now, luckily, I'm very happy to say we have a waiting list. It was very easy to find men. They came up, they volunteered themselves all the time. And at some point, I noticed we have a lot of men, but we don't have women, even though within EO, we have women with very good businesses, big businesses, very interesting things. And I found it hard. We needed to approach them, but once they came, they were amazing, mind-blowing things. I had so much fun. Do you think there's a reason for that? Is there something we can do to make sure that more women step up and feel more comfortable?
And I think that point that you mentioned where you sort of said, look, we are struggling for people in this sort of situation of which ladies, we want more ladies. The fact that I think people thought they were helping you, that's possibly what appealed more. Not the fact that you're there to raise your visibility or to say anything amazing, but you reached out on a personal basis and said, please, can you help me? I need some more people for my podcast. And I think maybe, and whether it's the way you're brought up or so forth, but to be able to be in service, to be able to help people is probably somewhere where ladies maybe sit more comfortably rather than go, it's me, I'm really confident or better than you or what have you. I don't know.
I think it's interesting because it's when we ask to interview a lot of people, especially when it comes to business or stuff, I wanted or hoped it would be more about the tendency to be proud about our craft. So it's not necessarily talking about how amazing I am, but rather sharing the craft, like you're telling me now, and I have only 1 million questions about what you do. Yeah. So that was very interesting to me that once they came to the show and we did it, afterwards they were, oh, this was so much fun. I'm so happy I did it and everything. But they got a lot of value back. Yeah. So I think I'm trying. It's very interesting to me.
I think that was an interesting point you mentioned about the craft. It's to share your craft. Maybe partly because of EO being a we learn and grow together. You never feel you've quite grown enough or finished your growth. And your craft is still to be developed. So when you talk about, oh, let's talk about your craft, you think, well, that's great. There's 101 more books I need to read first before I feel an expert. I think that's that kind of perfectionism, perhaps. It's not quite enough. That maybe also is something that might hold ladies back.
Yeah, I think for me on a personal level, EO is amazing because every time I want to do something, we're now working on a SaaS platform, I can find the top 100 people in Europe and the US and Asia to talk about 1, 2, 3, and I can learn from them and I can pick their brains. And we just did some investment in Europe. We found someone that's exactly what they do as a business. There's always people to learn from. And for me, that thirst for learning is always at the top of what I want to achieve. It will never end. There's always something else to learn. And then I wanted to ask you, when does a company come to you? At which stage is it worth for companies to start doing market research and stop guessing?
I think there could be a number of key times. COVID actually was a good thing for our business, which unfortunately for many others it wasn't the case. Because the world had changed and nobody knew what they were dealing with at that time. They had an awful lot more questions. So the searches on our website in terms of market opportunity assessment, that kind of thing, it tremendously went through the roof compared to the searches we would normally have. So you're in a situation where you know your audience has changed, the sentiment has changed, their needs have changed. So they want to go back to the drawing board again and sort of take that base level of asking those questions, getting to understand people more. So that was a kind of a hiatus point. So you often find that there can be startup organisations whereby they've received quite a bit of funding and they go, okay, we need to scale it big style. It's no longer the founder doing it. It's no longer the founder team. And they need a group of professionals to go out and stay on top of client needs and help with product development, that kind of thing. And then once you've got to the stage, you've got your plans, you have your strategy, and you might be looking to raise. You're at the stage where you've got a PR agency. You're spending quite a bit of money on that kind of outreach in addition to other types of marketing elements. If it's, shall we say, a dull product perhaps, or something you can't touch and feel, that's often when it comes to the research to sort of prove more of the pain points or demonstrate there's a particular issue, or again, understanding things. And then with that type of data, you can create your stories to sort of talk about how you understand things, and you can be part of the conversation in a useful way. So those tend to be much larger organizations. Yeah.
What would be the most common thing people come to you with, their needs? Most common thing.
Their common needs. You said that I would say about 60-70% of our work is in that C bracket, that content research. And so it's creating the story. So they've got a fair idea as to who they're talking to, where those people are, but they want to grab their attention. Whether it's emotionally, logically, or what have you, they want to grab the attention, they want to create a story, they want to reinforce their opinion, give evidence to their opinion. And we do a lot in the tech space because, again, you're talking SaaS products. It's you can't necessarily touch and feel. You're talking about putting lots of things together. But cloud computing, for example, that's one of those, people have talked about it for many years. And you just need to kind of, need to talk about something else to keep it relevant. IT security, big topic at the moment. Lots going on there, for example. And again, it's understanding the issues that are going on there and how people are resolving them and so forth.
What do they need to give you? They need to give you information about their service or their platform. They need to give you information about their brand. They need to give you a brand language, tone, voice, and so on. So you can make it out of their identity, or that doesn't matter to you?
Good question. I would say it depends which hat I'm wearing. We have what we call our two hats. So our content research is one, where we know that the objectives is to get a headline, get a story, get it out there. And then we have the strategic bit, which is where people are talking about understanding their audience and brand and what have you. Taking the content part, in answer to your question, we don't necessarily need to know their brand book. Yes, about their market. Yes, a bit about their brand. But because we're usually working with a third party, and then this is where we're working with a marketing agency or a PR company, the relationship is with those guys. You've got that longer term relationship. You're crafting the written word or the infographics or the website as a result of what's being created. So to us, it's more of the questions. So we know the headline that they're aiming for. We help them with the questions to make sure that they're relevant to the audience that they're asking, to make sure that it will get them the kind of output that they're looking for. So that's sort of in our content part. We don't need to worry about their brand books and stuff. Whereas when you're doing your strategic bit, yes, you take it right back to basics. The where, the why, the how, the what. Share what you've got at the moment. Let's see what you are like in terms of your attitudes, your values, your culture, and so forth. And those kind of projects, often the objectives you think you're starting with are different ones to which you actually go on to research or to develop your data around, because the problem you thought you had might not actually be that. You're better off understanding things from a different perspective or focusing on something different in order to get to where you want to go to.
The outcome could be where you come to a startup and say the problem doesn't exist, or it's not the way you thought about it.
Yeah. That could be it. And that's where you kind of go, yeah, we need to go back to understanding everything and what have you in that perspective. Because that's not necessarily nice news to tell people. We've done this research and actually what you're doing is not up to scratch. Or you need to do some major investments to change it.
How do you deliver such bad news? Because I work with a lot of startup founders. It's not very easy to give them bad news.
No, it's not. It's not. Well, I suppose I have the advantage of data. I am stood there or sat there kind of going, okay, it's not me necessarily. This is what your prospective customers say. This is what your employees say. I am bringing it together, distilling it for you to pull out the key things for you to go, do you know what? Maybe you need to reconsider a couple of these things. Yeah, not necessarily the easiest of message, but I have a crutch to lean on, perhaps, more than you might.
This discussion is very, very interesting. It's intriguing to me. Some of them will say, you know what, thank you very much, we're out. Some will say, you're wrong, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And to a certain extent, the processes that we go through, the data checks and the bits that go on behind the scenes, we will go in there confident of the data, even if it doesn't say exactly what they're expecting. But invariably, within the points of the data that we collect, there will be stuff that they'll go, yes, I recognize that. I knew that already. And you're kind of going, well, if you knew that bit already, that's great. So you can trust the rest of the stuff that we've collected. These bits are now taking you to a different perspective. But also insight is one of those, we all see the same data, but we're just looking at it from slightly different angles. That one set of data can be giving you something different 6 months later to which it's collected because you're looking at it from a different perspective. You've learned more and you're interrogating it in a different way. So
can I give you a suggestion, a marketing suggestion that came to my mind now? You cannot use you feel free to
I'll write it down.
If someone comes to me and asks me for something that's connected to what they assume something, right? And you will give them the numbers to either make it stick or disappear, right? Mm-hmm. And, I would think about putting when you send a proposal, a good tagline could be helping you check your gut, if your gut feeling is right. And it's interesting because then they can't say no. Yeah. And if they're wrong, they'll say, oh, yeah, I had a gut feeling. That's why we came to you. And if you're right, they'll say, I had a gut feeling. I'm with you.
Yeah. Actually, that's really quite. So we created a series of postcards a couple of years ago with a cartoon gut with, don't trust your gut, get some data behind your instinct sort of stuff. So thank you very much. I will bring those back out, I think.
Yeah. I wanted to, it's not don't trust.
Yeah.
You know, it's like connect it.
Connect your gut. I like that.
It's it's like there's something about I have a gut feeling and the numbers prove I'm right. You know, mm-hmm. It has something about it, and it's very interesting because I work with many startups. By the way, I can share with you. 6 or 7 years ago, a good friend of mine came to the office. She asked to consult. She was like, I want to pay, I need consulting. And I said, yeah, don't worry about it, fine. She came in, she had this idea. I said, I've done it for 2 years. I think the barrier is too high. It's not very interesting. Even if you have a good market, Israel is too small. It's not. I'll tell you what, find someone who's doing something similar and go and learn. She ended up skipping the idea, went to the company that I sold her. I sold them the whole business idea and the initial clients and everything. She went to work. I think she's the chief marketing officer now after 4 years. She's still there, which is great because she came back to me and said, I had this gut feeling that you're right. You know, which is funny. It's not that she was scared, she didn't like it, or whatever. She had a gut feeling that I was right. And if I was mistaken, she could always blame me. Right?
Yeah.
It's easy. Another interesting thing I can share with you is I work with many founders on startups. I work with a lot of accelerators and places, Techstars, if you know, they're also in London. Yeah. Startup founders are very interesting. They could go with the same idea and not change anything. Keep going. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
When they ask one of the most successful, the one is called the grandfather, or today he's already, he is the grandfather of Startup Nation in a sense. When they ask him, why didn't you invest in Waze? It became one of the biggest companies. Everybody uses Waze. So he said, I didn't get it, to be honest. You're not always right. Mm-hmm. Some cases you think, and I think in some cases, even the numbers, we think, but they pivot, they change. There's a lot of things. What is interesting to me is we help startups raise money where we didn't change anything except for their story.
Okay, yeah.
So we don't change the founders. We don't change the idea. the market. We don't change how much they're asking for. We don't change anything. The only thing is the way they're presenting that. And that's why it's interesting to me that the way you do market research could impact the results, right? How do you make sure that you're asking the right questions the right way? How do you define that?
Again, I think that's coming back to right at the beginning, the brief. What do they think they need assistance with? Is it creating the story, which could be different to, is this a new product? Or is there opportunity for me to expand in a different market? And a lot of that is the briefing to understand where they've got their success now, where they're looking for the future and why that is the case. And then the feasibility of how many people there might be out there to talk to them. And if you're doing a qualitative piece whereby it is a conversation that changes, you would create a discussion guide around topics that would be relevant to the client. They say yes or no, but you would still have that conversation like we are today that goes around different places. And you might actually pick out some additional interesting things that weren't quite in the brief. But if you have 10, 12 of those conversations and things keep coming up that weren't part of the main topic to guide, you think, well, this is actually a really important area that they can't afford to ignore, or joining that together would take you somewhere else. That's why I love qual work, because it can take you different places. When you do quant work, yes, you've got to be a lot more structured to ask your questions in the same ways that everything is comparable and so forth. But yeah.
You know the mom test?
Right. Pardon?
You know the book, The Mom Test?
No, what's that?
A guy wrote, so he worked for big companies, small companies. He had a startup. He sold companies and everything. And he wrote a book called The Mom Test. If I'm not mistaken, he's selling that for about $10,000 a month his revenue from selling that, I don't know, $12 book on Amazon. Like, it's very, very successful in the realm of startups, especially in the US. And he's saying we're asking the wrong questions to validate our ideas. Because if you go to your mom and say, Mom, I have an idea to open this and this, and she'll say, oh, honey, what a great idea.
If she's not your target audience, exactly.
So, and then you go and you say, my friend said it's amazing, my mom said it's amazing, but in reality, you're asking the wrong question, the wrong people to validate. And it's, by the way, the audio version is a bit slow for me, but I did it. But the book as a concept is very, very interesting. I recommend it to people who are at the beginning of trying to validate an idea. They're still not at the point where they need to come to you or can. And it's a great, funny question. And you sit with people, and if you tell them, if I told you, I have 1, 2, 3, and they'll say, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
But they wouldn't necessarily buy it.
Yeah, you need supporters around you when you're growing your business, when you're doing bits and things that might feel crazy. But if they're not the kind of people that you're looking to sell to at the end of the day, take it with a bit more pinch of salt. That's that love, that's that support, pick you up off the ground if it all fails. But would they put the hand in the pocket to buy it? Would they know the problems that it's going to solve?
What are a few things you would recommend for companies, up-and-coming companies who are starting and stuff, to kind of notice, take a look before they even come to you?
That is a really good question. Because there are so many questions you can ask, so many things as a business you could want to know. One of those key things is just trying to narrow it, because you can't do it all at once. What we call desk research, Google it, look for various sources. Just by putting in some of the simple questions that you might want to ask me, put it in Google, see what's out there. It might give you something really relevant so much quicker than going out to ask people that original research. A lot of the questions we get, particularly with startups, is who are the key players? What's the size of the market? What's it going to do in the future? And bits and pieces. And often they're in a very small part of the market, and the publications that are out there would be much larger, but you can still take a chunk of it or a data set of it and look at it and give yourself a feeling as to whether we're going in the right place or not. But paying me to do desk research probably isn't as quick, or the knowledge. Having something told to you by a third party can be really useful from a board director's perspective, and you've paid a consultant, you're going to listen to it. But as a company that's starting up, you want your staff to be as close to the market as possible, to the clients as possible, to where things are going. So you can save quite a bit of time, and then you know what you don't know. Then you have that gaps in data, and you go, okay, this bit isn't out there available for free, or let me now go and get something that's bespoke to me.
I think today everything's becoming so fast and social media has changed so many things. And now you put a new product out there and people are immediately, I like it, we don't like it, it's good, it's not good. I'm meeting more startups. There's even an EO member in Israel that his company knows how to take that unstructured data and structure it in a way. I can introduce you and turn that into something very interesting, because if not, we only know the structured data that the platform gives us, the users, the churn of how many people have left, and so on. Do you think today, and are we making decisions without knowing all the data? Are we knowing like 30 or 40% and guessing about the rest, or do you see it differently?
Good question. I think it would be impossible to have all the data everywhere. You've got the PPI information, personal identifiable information, that you can't relate to an individual, but there is so much data out there. This is where your big data and your AI and all of those different programs you're talking about. But there are many people that aren't, well, you have your social media people out there talking about many things and you can scrape that. But there are many people that aren't on social media, but they'll still be buying things off a website and there's a different pot of data there. And you haven't got 100% of the population on a survey. So you're never going to have all of it. It's a jigsaw puzzle to a certain extent, isn't it? It's take the best of what you've got. You've still got to use your own intelligence. You've still got to use your own experience to make those decisions. But nothing's ever going to be perfect. And the world we live in today is going to be different to the world we live in tomorrow. So you're making, based on historical information, everything's going to be old by the number of days that the data's been out there for. So you've still got to have that where, okay, I've got this. What is that leading me to?
I own a marketing agency for the last 12, almost 13 years now. And it's always interesting to me when I need to work with a PR agency or market research company and so on. How do you find that ability to, what I call, play well with others? Someone brings you that you're not overstepping there. What are some of the tips that you can give us in that field?
We love playing with marketing and PR agencies because you guys work quickly. You're not worried about spending forever looking at the data and navel gazing. It's rather, I've got what I need and I'm going to run and I'm going to create these things. In terms of playing together, in terms of different needs, to understand what's going to be done with your part of the project, your part of the data, your part of the brief, your part of the whatever, is always useful for the other parties to have an understanding. Client relationships, we have some clients that keep us at complete arm's length and we just deal with the questions that are given, or we deal with what we do and we have the agency in the middle and don't get involved with the brand. We have others that bring us in at the beginning where we're talking about the project, the survey that we're doing. So that the brand is us and the PR agency or marketing agency. And generally the quality of the product is a lot better because you're not losing things in translation. But it takes, should we say, an agency that's really strong or confident in its own relationship to bring in a third party. But those are the projects that work the best, is when you bring them in, bring us in a little bit sooner. We're all open and honest with each other. We're not going to pinch your client. You've got a much longer relationship, but we're here to make you look good. But the more we know, the better we can help you. So.
Yeah, I always assume if some companies will take out some numbers that don't fit what they want to sell or stuff like that, and that's one thing. But hopefully no one does that.
That we can't control. We can give you everything and we can give our take on it, but we don't know what happens afterwards. So,
you work in different countries, am I correct? What is different cultures treat numbers differently or research differently?
They do, yes. And when you do
give an example.
Yeah, when you're looking at data for surveys, you will generally find them. The Americans do mark things 10 out of 10. They're quite happy to do those kind of, yes, it's the best. Us Brits, 8, 9 is a really good score. You're not going to get that. And you tend to find that other cultures will be stronger in their agreement, as in wanting to say the right thing more than others. So when you do compare country to country or regions to regions, you do have to be mindful of, you'll always tend to get Chinese scoring more highly than Europe, for example, and things like that. So the story might not be in the difference because that's the way it's always going to be. Yeah.
How do you see your company in the next few years? Is it about scaling? Is it about improving? What are your plans?
We're going to go for that scaling thing. when I was in the Accelerator program, it's let's do 5 and 5. And that was 3 years or so ago. And it's never something I'd necessarily gone for before, but it does give you a bit of a focus. And by scaling your business, it gives your staff more opportunities as well for them to grow personally, to manage more people and so on and so forth. So, yeah, that's what we do.
How different does it feel, though, right? You're starting to manage different things.
Yep.
You're not just doing the market research side or working with that analyst. You're suddenly, we need to hire people. We need to train them. Everything changes, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. So you have to, we've got ourselves targets, the number of staff we need each year. By the end of the year, halfway through, we were only 28% against our target of new hires. We're now more like 80%, so we're on track because it's one of those, we need more people to do this. It's service. We need them to deliver it. But for the business of the 4 of us that started straight away, one of the founding partners announced that she was 12 weeks pregnant. So we had to go and employ a member of staff within our first year, which we hadn't necessarily planned for. So that gets you straight into the, okay, looking after somebody, they're not going to be bought into things the same as you because it's not their business. So, yeah, but you're right. We're constantly changing teams, shapes, influences, and so forth. Yeah.
Numbers is a very straightforward thing. Then you can't screw it up too much. So are you focused on hiring, especially when the 4 of you come with so much expertise, are you focused on hiring A players all the time, or is it?
That's what we aim for. You know, you have moments. We've got a brilliant set of staff, but we've learned things along the way. And possibly one of our biggest learnings is for every new position. So, for example, we've got lots of researchers of various grades. We've worked that one out really well in terms of what we look for in terms of a hire, their kind of aptitudes, skills, values, that kind of thing. That's lovely. So nearly everybody we've got is that. But when we've, for example, an office administrator doing that non-fee work stuff, a business development director, each time we have hired for a position we've never had before, and we're letting go of what we're doing, we have found that we've had to lose them relatively quickly and start again because it hasn't worked out. We've learned so much in those first 6 months that you've gone, right, we briefed for the wrong job, or we looked for the wrong person, or what has happened wasn't planned. So it's not hire fast, fire fast, but it is one of those each time, and we're going to grow our marketing department rather than just being me, for example. I know that that's going to also be, right, this is the first time we've had a marketing person assistant. We're going to struggle in the first 6 months and learn, and it's sink or swim. But it's unfortunate. We don't want that to be the case, but it seems that that's what we've done.
Yeah, I never planned on scaling. The agency always had a means to an end, which meant I also always hired juniors from the universities and the colleges where I teach. It meant I needed to invest a lot of time.
Yeah.
Knowingly that they will leave in a year or two. Some stay for 3, some for 4, which was always amazing. And we're still in very good contact. But now I'm building a new company, which is completely different. And now I'm struggling with, how do I even define what's an A player? I've never had employees like this. And I have bars. I've done different bars, nightlife and things. I've done consulting. I've done the agency. Now I'm doing something different. I'm like, okay. So I'm trying to figure out who will be the first employee, second employee, and kind of structuring that.
Yeah.
I think we will even qualify for an accelerator next year.
Oh, fantastic.
If you don't go a bit faster. You're in charge of the accelerator in London?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So basically, companies who don't qualify for the 1 million revenue and have 250 to a million can join the accelerator. How is this experience for you, running that?
Running it, I didn't realize there were so many things that went on behind the scenes. I have to confess, my first year on the board, I probably didn't achieve a great deal because I was too busy learning. And we shrunk a bit. This year, I think we're in a better position, and we've got some new members just about to sign the dotted line this weekend, actually, which is lovely. But I take my hat off to Amsterdam and to the Dutch. I mean, they've got so many, and they're so well organised, and I'm looking at their onboarding stuff going, brilliant. I need more people working with me on this. But I am passionate about doing. Pardon?
Marketing. I'm in charge of the marketing for Europe, as you know, and I already told you in Amsterdam, you and I together, I will help you at least double, because I believe for historical reasons, I believe London is the gate that needs to be strong. That was the gate in Europe. I don't know why I perceive that historically. That's my point.
We have a lot of, it's quite, there's members will come for a number of years as they move between one country, one region to another and so forth. So there's lots of great experience shares.
So I am definitely, I'm definitely here to support you on your journey. And hopefully if we can get 10 or 15 more people, I will definitely, I'll do a fun event with you guys once the book is out.
Yes, that would be brilliant. That would be brilliant.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, seeing that you're not such a rookie in podcast, how do you feel after today? Is it getting better?
Yeah, I've enjoyed talking to you. You've done very well at making me relaxed and asking interesting questions, and that's got to be half the battle as well.
I feel like I got the personal class, just so you know. I'm very happy. I learned a lot of things today.
Oh, good.
So any last words for young entrepreneurs, kind of like figuring it out, something they need to remember? Because you had a few good gems that I would remember for social media posts, but what's the last thing you're going to leave us with?
For employees or entrepreneurs? Because again, that could be different things.
Anything you want, that's yours.
Yeah, and I know I could be shooting myself in the foot by this from an employee perspective, but back to your point of when you come out of university, you don't know what you want to do for the rest of your life. Give various things a try. But stay friendly with the people that you've met along the way. As an entrepreneur, for me, I'd say don't worry about the badge. It's nowhere near as scary as you think it might be. And it gives you a place. If you've been told when you were growing up, you're never satisfied, are you? You're always trying to change things. Why don't you just sit down? Do you know what? That's what you need to be like to be an entrepreneur.
No. I completely agree. It's I come from a country that's how everybody is. So I completely agree with that. And I want to say a huge thank you for spending this hour with me. I had a great pleasure. For all of you listening, watching, wherever you are on this planet, if you're a student or a young entrepreneur, a big businessman, whatever you are, you're always welcome. If you want anything, you need anything, feel free. Reach out to eoeurope.com. We'd be happy to chat. I'm your host, Niels Avauer. As always, thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time. If you didn't subscribe to YouTube, can you go and do it now, please? Thank you. See ya.